One of the most commonly asked questions that I've gotten over the last year and a half is how have you continued to travel between continents during this pandemic? And the answer is pretty simple. It's that I'm going to places that are off the radar versus the big name brand countries. And today I'm going to share with you the two big parts of the world that remains open for you to go to, whether you're an American or from almost anywhere else. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, the author of this best-selling book available on Amazon and the founder of Nomad Capitalist, where our team of over 50 people helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you are treated best. And for the last year and really a few months, I have been pretty flexible in terms of where I can go in the world because I'm not going to the US, I'm not going to Canada, I'm not going to New Zealand, and I'm not going to Western Europe. Quite frankly, I've stayed out of the legacy brand countries that have been so closed that even when they open have been we're opening, then we're not opening, we're changing our mind, we need this, then we need that, there's a condition, it changes by the day. Certainly travel for anyone, including for someone like me who's going to off the radar places, has not been perfect. But I can say it really hasn't been that frustrating. And that's partially because after leaving Asia in the middle of last year, I went to primarily two parts of the world that have remained relatively open. And so as the West has remained closed or has had lots of conditions or has teased openings that often don't come, two parts of the world really stand out right now, and that is Central America and Northern South America and Eastern Europe. And so where have I been since leaving Asia last year? I've been in Serbia, I've been in Montenegro, I've been in Turkey, I've been in Colombia, I've been in Mexico, was in Panama briefly, I believe, and I'm probably missing a couple of countries. Let's go through some specific examples right now in Central America. Now, before we get into specifics, obviously these things can change. Countries do become more open, they do become more closed. The news is affecting this all the time. And what's very interesting is I'm looking at some of these countries, somewhere an American can go, a UK citizen can't go, or they need to quarantine. So I did look at requirements for US citizens, for Caribbean citizens, that you can obtain a citizenship by investment, and I threw in a couple other good citizenships from our team members, such as Serbia or Georgia, for example, for good measure. So these things may not apply to every country, but I'll tell you, with no test right now, you have Mexico open. You have, for some nationalities, Costa Rica is open. You have the Dominican Republic open, and now you have Colombia open. So I went to Colombia right after New Year's in 2021, and literally the night before the plane was taking off, they announced, hey, you know what, now we're going to have a test. And I had to rush here in Serbia down to the testing center and beg them they let me come in and get the test and get the results pretty quickly. So these situations do happen. It was a little bit flustering, but it was resolved pretty easily. Right now, those are four of the most open countries in the world. And so this year I spent a couple months in Mexico. We had our sold-out conference, Nomad Capitalist Live, spent time in Mexico City, spent time in Merida, spent time along the beach, and everything was pretty much wide open. Colombia is now more open than it was when I was there. It does certainly feel a bit more closed, but the restrictions have all been lifted. Colombia is open, you can go there. The DR has positioned themselves as one of the most open countries, and Costa Rica has also done the same. Now, with a test, you can get into most of Latin America, Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay being the exceptions. Uruguay, I think, does have a lot of things going for it, but they have been one of the more strict countries in this time. Chile, which is also very interesting and has been talked about for many years, I think is showing what I call this kind of visa waiver program, jump the shark behavior, where they've become such a successful, such a wealthy country, such a great passport, that now there's a certain kind of behavior that they have to engage in. So other places that have opened up, Ecuador, for example, very interesting place. A number of the Central American countries are pretty wide open. If you have a vaccine, you can go to Guatemala, El Salvador, Ecuador with no issues. Otherwise, you do need a test. In some of the Central American countries, there may be a quarantine depending on your nationality. But Central America, if we look at that, including Mexico, all the way down to Panama, and then we toss in Colombia, Ecuador, that part of the world is pretty wide open right now. And I think there's a lot of opportunities. I think Mexico is a great place. I can't tell you how many Americans I saw who were escaping what was happening in their states down to Mexico for the several months that I was there. Ran into a lot of people who watch us here on YouTube. And it's sort of been a great place for people who want to be free down in Mexico and down in other parts of Latin America, let's call it. Now, the second part of the world that's pretty open right now is Eastern Europe, and I've been saying this for months. Right now, with no COVID test, you can get into Albania, you can get into North Macedonia, and you can, depending on your nationality, get into Romania, even as part of the European Union. Not part of the Schengen area, but part of the European Union. That's valid for U.S. citizens, for, I believe, most of the Caribbean citizenship by investment countries. So those are countries you can get into with no test. And so I've had friends who are going through Albania, Macedonia, etc., having a great time. It has basically been, wide open. They've had a great experience. With the test, Serbia, Montenegro, these are pretty easy. Now, you definitely want to have your test. You want to follow the rules, and you want to make sure. Really, I think in some of these countries, it's more about satisfying the airline. I've been to Serbia, in and out, maybe 2 or 3 times so far this year. And I think at least one of the times it was just like, great, keep moving. Sometimes they check, sometimes they don't. Again, it's really the airline that I think does more of the heavy lifting. Armenia also pretty open. We have part of our team there, just had our COO come back from there. And again, hey, the country's open for business. They want your test. If you have the test, come on in, and life is as normal. And so why do I think this happens? I mean, if we look at it from a nomad capitalist perspective, why would a country be open versus another country that's closed is a couple of reasons. Number one, the economies of these countries need it. Now, perhaps you've never considered vacationing in North Macedonia, but I think these countries perhaps, number one, see an opportunity to have people come to their country. They get a certain amount of publicity. Maybe in the U.S. you don't hear as much about it, but in certain parts of Europe, people say, hey, it's on their radar if they're able to go somewhere. And so they can get a bump, and they can have that competitive edge, as well as they just need to keep their economies open. People in some parts of this world, I think Latin America in particular, eventually they're just going to revolt. One of the things why I think Asia is relatively closed, and I've said this for some time, Asia is somewhat like the benevolent king, and people are in charge in some of these countries, and they say, listen, we're going to do what's right for the people, but there is this kind of benevolent king vibe. I can't entirely say I'm surprised by so many Asian countries being closed, and so that is contrasted greatly with what you would expect in a Colombia, for example. People are going to get sick and tired. People are going to go and protest. People are going to be frustrated. Now, by the way, you're seeing that in Western Europe. We'll see how well that works. You saw it in Australia, and the government basically chided everybody for protesting and saying, you're going to get yourselves in trouble. We're going to make it even worse to punish you. But I think what some people are saying is enough, and I think that different countries have different cultures. Now, listen. Now is a time for reflection. If you don't like the way that your country's being run, if you don't like the choices that are being made, then maybe it's time to find a new country. That's what we talk about. Go where you're treated best. And so you have the opportunity to leave. We have people right now who are leaving their country right now. Even people who need to get permission are getting permission. They're following the legal channels because they are also saying enough is enough. And so this is an opportunity for you to go and find somewhere that is open, where you can go to a restaurant. I was just out, the grocery store the other day at 1 a.m, picking up a few things. Life here is open. Life in much of Latin America is open. And so if you're looking for a place where it's open, and it's not this constant cycle like you have in Australia now, was it half the people are stuck inside? This is not a judgment on any of that, but it's simply saying, here are the facts. These are the countries that are open. If you want someplace that's open, then these are places where you can go. So people ask, Andrew, how do I get the most out of Nomad Capitalist? How do I begin my Nomad Capitalist journey? The first thing people do is they start right where you're at. They watch YouTube, they listen to podcasts, they read articles at nomadcapitalist.com. We've spent years creating thousands of pieces of free content so that you can get the vibe from someone who's actually done this, from someone who's actually been in your shoes. What they'll do next, they'll get a copy of the book. You can find it on Amazon. It costs a few bucks, and while it's not going to give you all the secrets, it's going to, again, give you more of the vibe. You're going to learn a lot of the things that I've learned. You're going to learn some strategies you can employ, and you're going to get a lot further in your journey. From there, if you are the 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur investor, you can go to nomadcapitalist.com. You can click Become a Client. We're pretty busy these days, but we have availability to help a limited number of people who want to create a holistic plan, something that I think is so important. So if you want to do that, Go to nomadcapitalist.com, click Become a Client, learn more about how it works and how we can help you.